The Importance of Consciousness by Gregory Everett Huffman, narrated by Milad Funke. I hear people palaver about having their names credited in something such as a movie or whatnot, and how this will make them immortal. But what good is immortality without consciousness? What does a name signify? What does a clone of you signify? What good does it do you? You who are now devoid of consciousness if you are dead. To bestow some honor upon you requires that your mind be able to absorb these gifts, and the mind must benefit from some elevated state, such as happiness or satisfaction. What good is a reputation for a mind incapable of being affected by it? Your body belongs to nature. My mind derives a benefit from the actions my body takes, because the two are connected. Now, I know I may come off as a dualist here, but I am not truly advocating a free will, or that the mind and body are separate, but merely that the mind is the only part of you that is indispensable, that is unexpendable. If my body and my mind were separated, and my body was placed with another mind, and my mind with another body, which eyes would I see through? It would be like owning a new car. So, these existentialists that speak to us of the body and the mind truly being one, that is only true for those of us who lack the means to buy new cars, as we all do now, but when the time comes, one day we will see that the body is interchangeable, but the mind is not. Even if memories and personality can be exchanged with another person, that matters not, but the fact that I see through some set of eyes. As long as I experience feelings, pains, and some sort of emotions, even if they go through a different filter, then I can claim to exist. Protagoras said that man was a measure of all things, but more importantly, man's consciousness is a measure of all things, and this is only until we recognize the evolution of another animal's true self-awareness, and then any consciousness will be the measure of all things. Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen said something to the effect of, "Why does the universe need man? Isn't nature beautiful without man?" No, it isn't, because the idea of beauty needs a consciousness to spot it, just as a painting needs an audience to appreciate it. The importance of art isn't the painting itself, but the effect it has on the conscious man. What good is an art piece that has no effect on a man or his mind? It reminds me of the old tree in the woods scenario, but instead of the tree making a noise, the question becomes, who is there around to care whether a tree makes a sound or not? It was Friedrich Schelling who said that the man was nature that has become self-aware of itself. So, if you remove man from the equation, nature becomes a brainless zombie. All things exist for man's amusement, or they are worthless. Why worthless? Because worth has no distinction outside of consciousness. Words mean nothing when no one is there to comprehend what they signify. And then, when I think about all of this, I think back to my first light dippings into the Pierian springs of philosophy. My first love was with solipsism, and sometimes I honestly do think that I may be the only conscious being, or at least that I am conscious in a way that no other mortal is. Man is able to judge the animals as of lesser importance than him, so why is my egoism so much worse just because I have problems connecting with people who utter similar vocalisms as do I? Their thought processes rarely match up with mine. But I am digressing from philosophical to biographical here. But what concerns me is that, what is the difference between the end of the world and death? Or to be less egotistical, your death and the end of the world. Does one really matter more than the other? Does one really matter more than the other? In both cases I lose consciousness of the world and of myself. Back to Dr. Manhattan references. What is my investment in caring about a world that I no longer belong to? Okay, so maybe I have a few people, out of moral sentiment, I might care what happens to after I die, such as a wife or mother or a friend, etc. But why should I care for the consciousness of any other man or creature? Why should I care if we lose all of our works of art? Why should I care if the history records are all lost? They already will be lost to me. Of course, this all assumes that there is no afterlife and no reincarnation, both of which I myself wouldn't fully disclaim, because I think that science can't really answer the questions about our meta-consciousness. Now, what I mean by meta-consciousness is that Okay, so scientists can say that they know our body decomposes and dies. If the corpus callosum is separated, we become two different people. If our memories deteriorate, maybe we can't take them into the afterlife with us. Maybe our personality changes via the ship of Theseus. But can science ever really touch on what the foundation of consciousness is? All they tell us is that it is a spark of chemicals and neural connections, maybe. But why did this spark come into being in the first place? Again, I'm not advocating a dualism, or at least not the traditional kind, but rather I'm saying the body is the object, and we know in the universe there is nothing new under the sun in regards to these objects. But when it comes to the subject, our consciousness, this is something totally new under the sun. How can we recognize that nothing new under the sun ever manifests, and then with utter assurance say that death is forever the destruction of your consciousness in a world that never truly destroys everything but only changes things around? Maybe death scrambles my body, my memories, and my personality, but isn't consciousness the atom that cannot be split? Maybe it can go back to a state like before it was born, with a new personality bestowed upon it, and new memories that will form, and a new body that will develop, and it is totally devoid of superstition, but occurring only by natural processes. Seem unlikely? Well, it happened once to you already, because before you were alive, what were you? Dead? Not born yet? The difference is but semantics, because your consciousness was in a state of either non-existence or hibernation, or possibly occupying another vessel. And can science really prove there is no other plane of existence other than this one? Forget your holy books and your gods, but allow the possibility for a form of multiverse, where one dimension and its scientific rules can be separated from another. If we are in a closed system here in regards to this body and this mind, who is to say that the separation of our consciousness from this life won't migrate to another dimension? How would science detect this? And aren't we naive to deny this? We are thrown into a world we barely understand, and we think this world we see is the only one in our conscious graspings. You came from darkness, and you live a short fraction of a time here. How can we be so bold? It is like being born into a house without windows, and at first you wonder, where am I? What does this house hold for me? Is there anything beyond it? What wonders I am in store for? And then we live for a prolonged stay in this prison, and we think only this prison exists once we figure out its rules. We say that no other houses could exist because we can't see them. So maybe we can say the warden or the landlord is either on vacation or the house is in a state of arrant anarchy, but that doesn't mean there aren't other houses. You don't need a landlord to run the house for you, or to transfer you to another house. And because no one else can see out of the windows, no one can write with any veritable truth about whether other houses exist, because they would have to be guessing. But that doesn't mean the other houses aren't there. How can we judge when there are no windows and we hear no sound emanating from outside the house? We only know that one day we have to leave this house, so a lot of us say, well, he won't be living any more houses ever again. And how does one know this? Okay, so I've deviated quite a bit from my original course. I think it's time to wrap this up. All I'm saying is that nothing means anything intrinsically without consciousness interpreting it as important. Moral action doesn't exist without it, because you can't perform an immoral action by punching a rock or killing a tree. You can't lie to a dead man. When I die, do to me what Diogenes requested and throw me in a ditch. What do I care for an old shirt I no longer wear? Do with it as you please. Though I also believe it was Montaigne that said that funerals are for those who are living. So was it okay to lie to the dead Diogenes about how he would be buried, and then bury him how those still conscious will enjoy? I'm honestly not sure. The funny thing is that it may not hurt Diogenes' feelings, or those who attended and benefited from the funeral, but those who are consciously reading about getting depressed about a human nature who would lie to a dead man. Even in cases of non-consciousness being disrespected, it always comes back to who is conscious now. It is consciousness that is of prime importance.